Thank you. Okay, thank you for everybody here in the room and everybody dialing in online. My name is Alan Grogue, and I'm here with Timur from our North America team. And we're here to talk about the wonderful, interesting topic, given everything everybody's been hearing the last few months, which is modern analytics and governance at scale. So what we're going to cover is a number of key topics. We'll make sure there's time for Q&A at the end. We've got 40 minutes, or what have we got? 35 minutes in total, so we'll hold back 10 minutes for Q&A. Okay? So just moving forward, from an Avanade standpoint, hopefully everybody has heard of Avanade, but we've had a very long established relationship with Databricks. It goes back many, many years. We are the most accomplished partner with Databricks. Avanade, together with one of our co-owners, Accenture, we've picked up numerous awards this year. It's been our privilege to again collect the Global Partner of the Year award, and then our EMEA Partner of the Year award. Accenture won the Americas Partner of the Year. So it's you can't really sort of think about Databricks without recognizing the relationship we hold. Over 3,000 certified engineers is just one thing that I actually am very proud about. So moving on then, that's obviously the fun part of yesterday. So Lisa here, who collected the award on our behalf, she's our Global Alliance Partner. I'm just going to now just jump in. So I'm going to hand over to Timur to go through the first section.
And we're going to cover this in this intimate setting, yes?
We are.
Thank you. So why do organizations struggle with data? Because data is easy. No, I mean, there are kind of two types of, groups of clients that we work with. One set of clients, they already have modernized their infrastructure in Azure, and they have a set of PaaS services kind of supporting this data management foundation. And there's another set of clients that are somewhere along the journey. But what they have in common, or most of these clients, is they're still struggling to get the value out of data. And data is siloed across the different parts of the organization. Governance is restricting data availability and democratization. It takes inordinate amount of time to onboard or support data management, things like ingestion, provisioning, consumption. It's very much based on actually people and engineers supporting those management activities. There's a disconnect also between data producers, who is building data and who is consuming data, and still very much focused on technical ownership rather than data ownership. And I use the analogy of a library. We're building libraries for clients, awesome walls and infrastructure filled with many, many books, but librarian either had a night off or partied, and I walked in and I want to do a research paper, and I don't really know how to what data to pick out of this huge library, because I don't know what's the right data set for me to use to build that research paper that's, by the way, due tomorrow. And you heard Ali yesterday, in one of the sessions. He talked about Databricks investments, focus areas, Unity Catalog. Why Databricks is investing a significant effort and treasure into Unity Catalog in this metadata that describes the data that you have, is so you can actually enable this democratization. So people in the organization, engineers, data scientists, can actually pick the right data set and use the data that has been certified with quality. You know who the owner is. You can actually request data that's needed to build that next best thing. Those are some of the universally challenges that we're seeing with clients. So what's the solution? We have been working with Microsoft team for almost a couple of years now on helping drive the adoption of what they're labeling MAGs, or modern analytics and governance at scale, which is really a hybrid approach of how to build these ecosystems of data and analytics that are using the components of data mesh, using components of data hub, but in essence have the following components. You need to have a data strategy, irrespective of what you do. You need to really kind of figure out, okay, there's a element of technology transformation, how I'm going to support that transformation when I get out of this. And incrementally, things like, if you have a distributed data foundation, who's going to be responsible for some of those activities that today takes an army of people to onboard and ingest data and manage the pipelines? Kind of organizational aspect of this change and just ownership. Aligning people, process. I mean, if you're introducing automation as a way of managing the cost of ownership from a data management, there's now code-assisted or AI-assisted code generation. What are you going to do with that capacity? And what those engineers are going to do? That's all aspects of this change. And then at the heart of this kind of implementation guidance that we have been bringing to life with Microsoft teams and clients across North America and globally are kind of three components of this composable solution. Front and center, you really need governance. I mean, I talk to clients who are just migrating their legacy big data systems. We're going to migrate, we're going to rebuild, and then we're going to introduce the governance catalog and all that good stuff. Actually, the wrong answer. Migrate, think about really what's the data that you need to migrate. Are you migrating some historical data sets that are not available in the system of record? Maybe. But modernize, metadata-driven modernization. How are you onboarding data into these distributed data lakes? Are you connecting ingestion to your data catalog? And syncing the operational data plane with the analytical data plane as the changes are happening in your systems of record or authoritative data sources. Are you onboarding that, or have a mechanism to onboard and reflect those changes in the data lakes? And that's one kind of set of activities, and do that at scale quickly. But it has to be metadata connected, driven with the ownership, ability to request, in-place access with Unity Catalog. Now you have attribute-based assignments at the Delta table. I mean, you have an extended data level security that you can really hone in how do you manage the security in your factory part of the data platform. Data management foundation, there's some set of consistent, or there are a set of capabilities that we expect to see in any enterprise. You have a, significantly, we have a fragmented organization. We have the infrastructure supporting different parts of the organization. We have one, shared data infrastructure. You need to have a foundation with some of this automation we talked about. And then you have a way of how do you build data products, or how do you drive the decentralization of things that you build on this analytical platform. And that's really consistent with the lakehouse reference architecture. You're bringing compute or different types of computes to data that sits in this Delta Lake. Technical architecture aligned to cloud adoption framework, our accelerators, and supporting intelligent data platform, and then implementation stages. This is how do you get going? That's really what this MAGS is. How do you get to a destination? What are the choices you should make along the way, and why? And how we can help you move on that journey fast. Drilling into this composable solution. So there's some set of expectations that as I shared, we expect to see here. So it's Microsoft recommended the implementation and guidance is on the left-hand side. So in terms of governance, you need to have a lineage. I mean, if you have a Unity catalog and Purview or any other catalogs out there, how do you unify your operational metadata so you have a visibility end-to-end in your ecosystem? Who owns the data, where it's being created, and what's the journey? So that you then, as any of the authors along this journey, you can pick the right data set. And you know where it's been created, who owns it. You have a data access or data management model, delegated access management model. And you can shorten the time to where you want to be, like time to insights, by having a solid starting point. Data ordering, integrated data ordering in catalog or marketplace, those are some of the expectations that we see around implementation of governance in the enterprise. Management foundation, I talked about it. Lakehouse is front and center. Ellen is going to talk about Fabric in a minute. Foundation for Fabric, or as software as a service, is a Lakehouse-based data lake. And now automated data management. This is really important. How do you reduce the cost of ownership organizationally as an IT or data IT organization, so you can go after ingestion, processing, things that today take an inordinate amount of time and they shouldn't. And then lastly, domains and data products. What are the patterns? And then how do you build these data products? What are they? Who needs to build them? What are the personas? Low code, pro code, different set of. Think of it as software patterns for analytical data. And we have assets, accelerators, and experience to help clients in this journey. And that's really what has been the basis of the success that we had so far with our clients, both here in US and elsewhere. Okay, great. How do we put all of this together? What does this, what does this mean? How do you bring these domains, data lakes, and data products together? There's a set of guidelines and design guidelines and implementation best practices that we're seeing emerge. One, it really is a set of data services that sit on top of a common data lake. Whether it's one lake or a distributed data lake, whether you're using PaaS services or you're using SaaS, you need a lakehouse foundation for anything that you build or any compute that you bring to that data lake. And then you have a set of services. And those services will use heterogeneous cloud services. PaaS, real estate is here to stay. SaaS services like Fabric and others are emerging, and that's kind of represented in this view as well. And when it becomes a GA, we'll see that some components of this distributed estate will be fully supported by SaaS services, and some will be a mix of two. Metadata catalog as a repository is really foundational to this. That's what brings this together. How do you start connecting what data is available where, who owns that, and how do you start requesting access and enabling this in-place access of the same copy of data? That's really is the key, is how do you reduce the data proliferation? And by reducing the data proliferation both in bronze and silver part of these data lakes, then you are also increasing the visibility of what are the, these combined or derived data sets that teams are building based on business requirements. And then you're using a catalog or a marketplace as a mechanism of, natural selection of certifying and different levels of certifications tied to these data sets. And then really, organizationally making, there's a social metadata component of this as well. What data set is more attractive, has higher value than others? And that's also going to, will help you make a decision of should we build something that's already available out there? Answer is most likely not. Data service patterns, kind of supporting this decentralized authoring within these domains. How do you build things independent of each other? Again, ties, is consistent with the Fabric experience. Who am I in the enterprise? What are my skills? Am I pro code? I want to build, Spark notebook or Python notebooks and apply that using any Spark engine, or I want to, my experience is more consistent with writing SQL or drag and drop experience with some of the Power BI interactive capabilities that are available out there. And then lastly, it has to be really support for multi-cloud data and cross-functional use cases. Being able to support these expectations across major cloud providers, and then provide this seamless interaction, federation and virtualization across these distributed data sets are the expectations that we see emerge with other clients. I won't bother you with the logical architecture, but it's this is really what's emerging as you have a management foundation, medallion architecture, set of expectations in terms of how do you create these curated data sets. This is where that automation comes to play. It's Unity Catalog plus Purview. Unity Catalog supporting really data level security and access management expectations for all the artifacts that are in the lakehouse. Purview providing broader visibility across the enterprise data estate. And then who you are. Am I an analyst or data scientist or an engineer? What is my vice of choice, and what's the computer I'm going to bring to this data? That's really how this stuff comes together. So Alan.
Thank you, Timur. So yesterday, 1,500 partners of Databricks were invited into this center, and we got a bit of time to speak to Databricks leadership. We had a lot of Q&A, and it was unsurprising to see Microsoft Fabric dominate a lot of those questions from the Databricks partners like ourselves, Accenture, etc. Now, from an Avanade standpoint, I think we're very fortunate because we've been engaged in the Microsoft Fabric journey for many, many months. It's beyond 12 months, okay? And we've had a number of our MVPs, a number of our thought leaders work very closely with Microsoft Product and Engineering. But on the other side, we've got all of our tech champions, again, the MVPs, working on the Databricks side of the house. So we were really in a unique position. When we saw a lot of those questions, we were able to answer them. But to hear Ali's perspective, and clearly it's an evolving story. But if we we're just going to unpack in a few minutes what is the Microsoft Fabric perspective, okay? So Microsoft Fabric goes into GA later this year. Yeah, we know the date. We know broadly what's coming out. And we have this sort of Venn diagram that I'm presenting now to talk about the ever-evolving and the trajectory in the future relationship between both these lakehouse-based platforms. Now, I want to just quickly show, this isn't the detailed version of Matt's visual, but basically, yes, this event is called, the Gen AI era. The problem is with Gen AI and any level of machine AI, we're all grappling with a huge amount of fragmentation across our enterprises. Every enterprise in the world has a different permutation or combination of technologies, many, many legacy, many, many bleeding edge, cutting edge, etc. And that actually is a bit of a problem when it comes to unlocking all that value sitting within your enterprises. And in reality, that's what Microsoft Fabric is aiming to do. It's aiming to simplify your entire data foundation. Okay? Only one data visualization tool. Only one governed methodology aligned with Databricks and Unity Catalog strategy. Only one user experience through Office 365. And it is actually true. Yes, we are living at the most exciting time ever in the history of technology, innovation, etc. And it's just going to continue to get faster and more detailed. But actually, from an Avanade standpoint, it's a simplified story, a very simplified story. So from our level of visibility, and I'm not going to read these off, but ultimately, for those technologists in the room, you know this already. For those who are, for me, maybe more business, and those people obviously dialing in online, it is a better together story. It is a better together story, and I don't want anybody to think that these two platforms are in competition. Now, we don't know what the future might hold, but right now, there's a lot coming out. Clearly, we're in public preview now. We've been through private preview. Avanade has actually implemented Microsoft Fabric into our organization, so we're practicing what we preach. But ultimately, the Better Together story has multiple dimensions and multiple value pools that we're now starting to unlock. And we're just giving 3 examples here. So clearly, today, lots of organizations leverage Databricks, but use Power BI, the market-leading BI solution from Microsoft that's offered on a SaaS basis. The second area is, yes, there are going to be shortcuts. The endpoint isn't available right now on public preview. It will be available very soon. And then thirdly is, yes, what is that hybrid cloud model that the two of them will unlock? So in terms of the direct lake capability that's available right now, well, clearly what you've got are the 2 interoperable lakehouse architectures, both built on the Delta format. Obviously, Databricks is evolving right now its own level of capability. Microsoft will have its own copilot, its own automation. We've seen Ali earlier talk about the latest Lakehouse IQ, which isn't though an assistant, but clearly there'll be a level of trajectory there. But what you've clearly got here is the market-leading capabilities of both these technologies, giving you power, giving you cost efficiency, and actually giving you a level of democratized user experience. The threshold, when you're going to have Microsoft Fabric, everybody is a data scientist now on a low-code or clearly pro-code basis. And well, that excites me. So could you imagine what this, I'll give you one example. Could you imagine from a low-code basis or from a GenAI perspective, your enterprise, whether you be 1,000 people or 10,000 people, you'll be using the Copilot assistance from Fabric to generate code that you can choose to actually embed in OneLake or in your Fabric environment, or place that directly into Databricks. Like that's stuff that you could do arguably in the next few months. It's going to lower again the threshold. They're both built on a Delta format. They're both interoperable. Nothing separates them.
Yeah, and just to add, so I mean, you're probably technologists in this room, but these questions come up. Great, I have a Databricks investment. I have PaaS services. What's the path? I mean, is there coexistence? And what's the what are some of the scenarios that we see emerge as kind of the adoption scenarios? This is probably top of the list. If you think about it, you don't need a Fabric license. I'm not a licensing expert, but it's Power BI Premium or Fabric. Direct Lake is supported. And it's really a connection model for a Vertspec engine to consume Parquet formatted files out of your Lakehouse reference architecture. And what opens up downstream is Copilot for Power BI experience. I don't know if some of you have you've seen the demos. It's pretty compelling. So you're going to have a Vertipec or a semantic engine on top of your Parquet files in the Lakehouse with a Copilot where it will generate the semantic models for you based on the instructions that you provide and the interactive visualizations that describe set of, that answer business questions that you're providing in real time. That's transformational, because the talent that you need today to build out these DAX models, DAX queries and models that support these interactive visualizations, building interactive visualizations itself, those expectations are changing significantly. So that's probably top of the list. There's some other ones as well, right?
So we're offering, if you're an Avanade or Accenture customer, we're offering actually a free 4-hour workshop to unpack Microsoft Fabric, to unpack MAGs, Modern Analytics Governance at Scale, to unpack your Databricks strategy. And ultimately, coming out of that 4-hour free workshop, you will have a road plan around enablement, but also transitioning. So enablement across your enterprise, whether you be technical, non-technical, for your business users, for your back office users, and then clearly the transition. As Timur has said, it's an easy upgrade. It's actually a relatively easy migration from the likes of Tableau, MicroStrategy, et cetera, which are all based upon certain technologies, where we've got accelerators to get you migrated from those technologies onto Fabric. So, Timur, last slide.
Not a busy slide.
Not a busy slide at all.
Tech value. Okay, great. We've talked about all this technology. How do you align the platform modernization opportunities to actual value? I talked about platform operations, talked about data operations. How do you tie that, yes, it's Fabric or any of the platform modernization opportunities? You really need to start with where you are today and where you want to be. And how do you measure impact? Because there's, in our business, we've been talking forever, use case value realization. What's the value associated with, business use case activation? That still holds true. But there's a whole business of IT and modernization of IT and a set of value dimensions that we can, we have identified across some of the capabilities that are called out here. That are compelling. Data operations. If you can reduce the development time of a part of your data engineering team, and this doesn't happen overnight, and there's people, process, policies, and technology. 8% of the challenge is technology, 92% is people, process. Because technology is actually relatively easy. We can enable this automated ingestion, et cetera, but do you have the assets in catalog? Do you have kind of the process figured out and honed in to really start getting the value? Once you do, you will start to reduce, just think about it. X number of engineers today that you have in the organization. If you can reduce the level of effort associated with building something by 50, 70% for ingestion, and then repurpose that engineering capacity to apply business requirements on top of the data that's available in this data lake, in this lake house, are some of the levers that are changing the dynamics of IT today. It's really important is great tech stuff, where you are today, where you want to be, and how do you measure value realization from a technology standpoint as you start this journey.
So we're making available today 2 white papers. The first QR code on the right-hand side is to our Modern Analytics and Governance at Scale white paper. You just have to register to get access to that white paper. The one on the other side is a data platform buyer's guide. This is a guide that, when we look at the types of procurement dimensions you're going through, actually, I would say a lot of the procurement decisions you're making don't actually, or they're not suitable for these platforms. A lot of procurement departments are actually trying to push you, or I won't go into detail, but they're pushing you to analyze or procure data platforms, not actually data platforms that can extend across the analytical and AI needs of your enterprise. So we've written this white paper to talk about those additional procurement decisions, those considerations that you should take on board. So have a look at them. And we'd just like to open up well, thank you for your time, thank you for your attendance, and open up for questions both in the room and online.